You served as a Pennsylvania Mountain Service Corps member, and what were some of the needs you were addressing in the community?
Yeah, so I served from 2008 to 2010. So I did 2 years at Girl Scouts Western Pennsylvania.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was wonderful. So while I was there, I guess it would kind of be considered now, and I don't think it was called this then, but like community wellness. So I did a
Okay.
lot of outreach to underserved areas. Like I would do, programming at like group homes. So they
Wow.
weren't like traditional troops by any means, but they were, just like I said, underserved populations. Really cool. Yeah, I loved it. So I was able to connect with like youth in that way, and yeah, did some organizing. Like it was kind of all over the place, but the main goal was like that community wellness with that outreach component there, and that could, you could see the same person all year.
Mm.
Would be in and out, so it was just kind of like supplementary programming
Okay,
for
okay.
them. So yeah, I guess the emphasis is more on the outreach to underserved populations.
Cool. And like, would you do like enrichment activities with them, or what would be some of the activities you would do?
Definitely enrichment along the lines of wellness. So
Okay.
because it was girls and then teenagers, like time. So we would do things on like healthy eating, body image,
Wow.
a little bit of like self care, like just those kind of things, like
Wow.
workshops. And sometimes they were really just based on what they desired. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
kind of had a curriculum book and was able to go from there based on what Girl Scouts already offered and what we could kind of tailor to those populations.
Wow, that's so cool. Way to take like the, I just think that's so neat to like take the traditional model
Yeah,
and
it was
really,
great.
wow.
Yeah,
Like really like I don't know, just reconfiguring to meet the needs of the population. That
these are sometimes people that might need it the most, kids that might need it the most. And just even having one more trusted adult in their corner, I think was really beneficial.
yeah, because like you said, they might be the girls who would be most benefited from being in a troop, but might not have somebody who would be able to bring them to a troop meeting or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
Wow, so cool. So, did your time there and your service there, did it have any like impact on your longer term career that you entered into?
Approach, and I'm a project manager now.
Wow.
But I realized during my 2 years of service, and I was pretty young when I did them. I think at the time I was the youngest person to serve with PMSC. I was barely 20. I was like 2 months after I turned 20.
Wow.
And so I learned through my service that I had really great organizational skills.
Okay.
So I was just able to, and by organizational, I don't necessarily mean tangible items, although I'm great at that too. Really community building. Like I've learned that I really have a passion and a skill set in community building because, in addition to doing that supplementary programming, I was involved, I think actually day one, hour one, like my very first task as an AmeriCorps member was to go to a Santa Fund planning meeting. And I don't remember if this is at the very beginning of Santa Fund or, in the early years, but
Okay.
I was at the ground level on planning the logistics for Santa Fund. So, I mean, between purchasing, over 1,000 gifts and then getting them to the Girl Scout building and unloading them and then having to sort them and then distribute them. Like, I really found a passion in that. And being able to connect with folks from all different areas to actually achieve the goal. So that's like where I just bringing folks together became a passion of mine. And now, like I said, I have a whole career in it. That's all I do all day.
Wow. Yeah. Like what you were saying about organizational, and then you use that term logistics. That really, yeah, you discovering that through your service.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
I think in a kind of a formal setting. This was my first like office job, so I was just it clicked, and like I said, I was able to leverage that skill to become a project manager.
Okay, so to that end, then, like obviously you were young, you were green in a lot of ways, right? So what were some maybe a challenge or some challenges you maybe faced, like that you feel like you persevered through, you learned something through, all that kind of stuff?
Honestly, I think on the same topic of organizing and bringing folks together, is I learned some of the just inherent challenges of bringing together different people with different viewpoints. And I can recall, sometimes there would just be decisions made that folks didn't agree with, or specifically in terms of like planning events. And having to kind of reconcile different opinions and then come to this consensus that's maybe the right answer but not one that everyone buys into. That was a huge lesson, and I can still remember some of those conversations being kind of uncomfortable for me. But again, now years after the fact, I understand that that's a part of life, and I'm able to navigate those challenges so much easier. But really, like I said, reconciling differences of opinion. A lot of times, I was working with folks that had been in the field for in some cases decades, and then it was very green. I didn't know anything about anything, and like kind of felt like I had to hold my own in those spaces. So yeah, that was a wonderful lesson, but it was definitely a challenge.
It's so interesting, a lot of times now in the AmeriCorps world, we talk about cross-generational serving, and they probably would not have used that terminology back in the early 2000s when you served, but you really were, a pioneer in that in a lot of ways, because the Girl Scouts does represent one of those organizations where there is such cross-generational serving, so interesting, and like in a lot of ways a pioneer in that through your service unintentionally. Very cool. Speaking of that, thinking about cross generational serving and just working, like you said, with all different types of people, were there any relationships you made during your time of service that were impactful to you?
Oh my gosh. Actually, so many of my closest friendships are people that I met during those 2 years. In fact, I'll actually send you a picture. I don't know that you need a picture.
I would love some pictures, yes.
One of my favorite pictures is actually my site supervisor, who is now one of my very closest friends.
Wow.
I read in her wedding, we visit her, she lives in Virginia now, it's a thing. And so I have a picture of myself and her, and then at the time, my AmeriCorps member. And this was years removed, 10 years later. I advocated at my place of employment for an AmeriCorps member, and I got one, and I was able to supervise them. So it's kind of like a full circle. And we were all at the same play together, so I had someone take a picture. But it's so special to me because both of those relationships are so meaningful to me, and directly tied to service. But no, my very closest friends, I have a list of people that I consider close friends that I directly met during that time.
And how do you think that happened? Why do you think some of those friendships are some of the most important for you?
I think it's twofold for me. I think one, we were given the opportunity, and I know at the time we were able to do a lot of supplementary activities for members. And even meeting people, we went to Philly for something. It was early on in the year. I don't remember. Yeah. But that's a 3.5 hour ride on a bus. So just literally exposure to people, the service projects, Martin Luther King Day, that kind of thing. We were in the same place at the same time. But I also would think that it was just shared values. If you're willing to give up, essentially a year, in my case of your life to do this. And I found the pay stubs for the time. I think I shredded them last year, and I could not believe what I was able to do. But it's that I think just service is a culture, and I think you find varying degrees of it with members, but I think just being around that culture of people, you kind of already fit together, I think, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so many shared values, like outlooks,
Right.
and
While
yeah,
still being very different.
for
I
sure.
grew up very differently than other members. We were at different places in our lives. Like I said, I was 20 years old when I first joined, and one of my closest friends now was also a member. She was 28 at the time. So I mean, that's a decent spread. But yeah, I think just connecting on shared values of service was enough. And here we are years later, still connected,
I do hear often from members about just what you said, that whole idea that so you end up in the same place, maybe, or nearly the same place at the same time. You do have something motivated you of a shared value of service, but you're coming from all different backgrounds, all different walks of life, all different levels of experience. And that can be challenging and at the same time so rewarding, and so relationship fostering. Like it's just
absolutely.
it's so interesting. And okay, so this year we have a pretty big core, which is super exciting for us. We're in
I love that.
Yeah, we're in our 30th year of service this year, and so we're just really trying to highlight some of the incredible things that PMSC members have done and are doing over the past 30 years and looking forward to the future. And so in that idea, what do you have any words of, encouragement or advice for this year's core?
Oh, definitely. I would say to just honestly get the most out of your service, in terms of relationships, knowledge, really using the time to find yourself, what you're good at, what you're interested in. And again, just, if there's an event, go to it, meet people. And it's just a wonderful opportunity to build your network, build friendships. And there are ways to maximize your time. In the I put it in the service, but you know what I mean?
Right.
But I do. I feel like I was lucky enough to have really maximized my time, and it has led to such wonderful things for me. Like I really feel like a champion of AmeriCorps. I mean, it allowed me to go back to school, finish my degree. It just like opened up all of these doors. And again, the friendships, the knowledge, the connections, they're just so valuable.